Hey everybody, I'm Orlando Fox and welcome to Perspective. A few weeks ago, the Trump administration announced a federal takeover of the DC Police Department. His administration focused on three key areas, and let's break them down for you. First, the deployment of the National Guards in the city. Second, using emergency powers to take control of the city's police department. And third, a surge of federal law enforcement on city streets. This is a topic that everybody is discussing, and I have guests today who also have much to say. First, joining me is the president of DC Young Democrats, Jamal Holtz, entrepreneur, community activist, and executive director of Street Love, Cameron Henderson, and author, activist, Eon Williams. Gentlemen, welcome to the show and thank you for being here. Let's get straight into it. What say you with the thinking of what the DC takeover means?
Well, I think it's egregious, to put it frank. I think what we're seeing in today's climate with a takeover, a federal overreach and takeover from the president, it's something that you just won't ever see in any other American city. And so I think frankly, it makes me feel like a second-class citizen, to where a president can decide to deploy military and DEA agents, FBI, into an American city that is majority black and brown and be subjected to federal control, right? And I think it's simple. Like, if we were a state, we would not be in this climate. And so this has nothing to do with safety. It's not about safety. It's all about political gains and power and control over a city that rejected President Trump 3 times. That's what this is all about.
So you think this is revenge politics?
I mean, has President Trump showed any other thing but trying to take revenge? And I mean, we knew on the campaign trail, he had a hit list of people he wanted to get at, and DC was one of those places, right? Project 2025 and all his tweets and sort of media and campaign trail talks was about taking over Washington, DC, right? It was about beautifying Washington, DC and Washington. Sure. And making DC safer in a place where crime is at a 30-year low, right? So this is all about a democratic city that is controlled by a black woman and led by a progressive council, right? It was about a power grab for him, not about safety and it's all about politics.
Eon, what say you?
I love the way he said it, man. But for me, not to get too deep into it. I mean, I'm against it 100%. And I don't really buy the word games as being played for what the reason is. And since we had this part of the conversation, I would tell you what my personal belief is. My personal belief is it was some form of revenge. I mean, the interim U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia before Jeanine Pirro was Ed Martin. Ed Martin came in there and fired almost, I don't want to say every, I would say every, but almost every U.S. attorney that prosecuted the January 6th. Now, Jeanine Pirro was here saying that, we don't have enough prosecutors to prosecute and do all this stuff. He got rid of, they said they 90 prosecutors short. He got rid of most of them. The second thing that I wanted to say that I see, and I don't know if anybody else see it or see it the way that I see it, that aside from the revenge, like he just mentioned, which I agree with, I was gonna say it in another way, is also an immigration play. DC was a sanctuary city, and for people who don't keep up with the details of the news, the police takeover was rejected. Yep. They won in court. The only thing that they won was what their secondary thing was, which was for DC to help and participate in immigration enforcement. That's how I feel.
Cam, what say you?
The question is, what do I think about the takeover? I think it's necessary. I think the takeover is necessary. I connect with a lot of young men in the juvenile facilities. I connect with young people all over DC, Maryland, Virginia, and other states. And specifically in DC, I recognize that the mentality of our young people when it comes to the lifestyle that they're living is a mentality that is unsafe for them to exist in the way they've been existing. And so for Trump to make the play to have the National Guard here does make citizens safe. It does make the grandmothers and the mothers and the sons a bit more safe, even if it's just for a little while. It may put a bit of fire under Muriel Bowser, the council, to make moves to ensure that our city is safe.
Yes, now I'm gonna take a different perspective because I was listening to some pundits on television. I heard one talk about the Willie Horton case, which was, I think, a Massachusetts inmate back in 1980s, like 1988, and it's just sort of fear and racism where there was this sort of furlough weekend program for inmates, and this gentleman allegedly, or maybe because he was convicted of raped, murder, etc. And it was the notion of President Herbert Walker Bush against Michael Dukakis at that particular time. And not that the Bush administration at that time used the campaign ad, but I wonder if it's that fear tactic of getting people feeling worried and apprehensive about black and brown people in the city. If you remember, probably during the 90s when the city was under siege, there were different tactics being used. So I wonder if that's a part of the strategy.
So it's interesting that the name of this show is called Perspective. So I have a different and a unique perspective. And I'm not saying that this is not a fear tactic. The question is, what is my thought around the actions that Trump has taken to ensure that the National Guard is put in D.C. and what are the results of him putting the National Guard here? It may be a race tactic, it may be a fear tactic, it may be all these different things.
Yep.
But on the surface level, and we're going to go a bit deeper so you get a bit more of my perspective. But on the surface level, I know that there are young people walking the streets feeling a bit more safe because, okay, well, my op might be down the street, but guess what? The National Guard is here, so I can now move in a free way. That mother who might have been nervous going at 10 o'clock at night probably is not as nervous as she would have been if the National Guard wouldn't have been here. So that's on the surface level. So that's my perspective.
Do you think D.C. is a safe city?
I don't think D.C. is a safe city.
And what makes it unsafe for you?
See, the question is D.C. a safe city? I don't look at the people in the city and feel very unsafe. I know it's a bit more unsafe for my family, but I grew up in D.C. So I can recognize and I connect with the young people that are committing the crimes. So I don't necessarily feel unsafe.
And let me just ask you this for a second. When you say I connect with the young people that commit the crimes, you just lost some viewers. Parse. What does that mean?
Fair deal. So the organization I have is called Street Love. And Street Love, we go into the juvenile facilities. The program's basis is to teach young people to love themselves, love others, and discover their purpose. So majority of the young people that may be committing the crimes, the young people that might be robbing, stealing, and doing all sorts of things, Street Love is making it our business to engage with those young people. We figured that why would we go to a Banneker or the schools that there might not be as much crime? Why not go to the central place where these young people are going at and really engage with them about their identity? So again, our program is teaching young people to love themselves, love others, and discover their purpose. And what we find with Street Love is that when we engage with these young people with love, it's transforming their minds, hearts, and spirits. You see them exist in a way that they wouldn't normally exist. So as we go down deeper in the perspective, my perspective will come out a bit more when it comes to the view I have with these young people. Even though I feel that it's necessary for the National Guard to be here, there's also a humanity that our young people need in this space. We need to view them as humans, love on our young people, and make sure that they have the resources to move from one level to the next. So that's another conversation, but we'll get there.
Jamal.
Yeah. I mean, I've many thoughts. I think even your perspective around the idea of how do we invest in young men in this city, it's spot on, right? We do need to invest in sort of love on young men and sort of show them that like there is a way, right? But that's also not what's being deployed, right? And so what we're seeing is there is no sense of street love when it comes to the hundreds and 1,600 National Guard military uniformed officers patrolling the streets. And so what I often say is that, to your point around safety is defined differently depending on who you ask, right? It's not a definition of safety. It's a perspective, like you said. And so when I think about safety as somebody who grew up in Southeast and Ward 8, and so as someone who also currently lives in the privileged neighborhood in Navy Yard, those two definitions of safety look very different. I actually feel less safe walking around Navy Yard now than I did days before the Trump takeover. And the reason being is I give my boys an example. If the four of us was walking outside, right, and this goes to my point around there's an unequal balance of enforcement that we're seeing in the communities. If the four of us was walking around Navy Yard, it's very different if I was walking by myself in Navy Yard. If the four of us was walking in Navy Yard and National Guard officers saw four black men walking through, or FBI or DEA agents saw the four of us just walking, right, we would be subjected to a random search or subjected to an arrest with no cause.
Would that be based on how we're dressed,
I
our
think-
hairstyles? I just want to be transparent.
I think it's first based on what we look like, right? The skin color.
Yep.
I think the following metrics around how we dress and what we wear and our hairstyles, right? Those are all things. Those are style preferences, right? But regardless, we're subjected. History has shown us that we're subjected to that level of enforcement just on a surface level, right? We can be doing nothing wrong, and that's what we're seeing a lot of now. 700 arrests have been made. Right, and sort of many of those arrests, we don't even know if they were committed crimes. There's been no due process. There's been no opportunity to track the data to see if these are actual criminals. But no, what we're seeing is people randomly arrested, and half those people arrested are immigrants. Right, so this isn't about protecting DC as a community. This is to one, push for Trump's agenda around immigration, and two, to control a democratically led future state, as I will call it, that denied him 3 different times.
Yeah, I was just also in my research, I was reading about the DC Home Rule Act of 1973, and I was looking at the 740 specific section that allows the president to temporarily take control of the police department for federal purposes. So I wonder if using the language of emergency.
Can I correct you?
Yes, go ahead.
Request.
It don't say take control. It don't say take control. That's a word that's been propagated by the media. Yeah. It say request services. I mean, that's in legal terms, that's way far less severe than take control, commandeer, as in which they tried to do and portray that they did.
Absolutely.
And the courts ruled against that, so they didn't take control of nothing.
That's yes, go ahead.
Yeah, no, spot on. I was literally gonna say the same thing. There's no control of our police department, but what I will say is there's a unintentional, intentional control of our police department, right? So when these requests, like the court, yes, did say he can't take it over, but the court also left room for subjectivity when it comes to the word request. Because how far can these requests go, right? When he requests to say that MPD must now follow around the National Guard, or follow around, right? But that's a request that he's made.
Right, but the only thing that they granted him the thing to get, all through Pam Bondi, is just to turn over the information for immigration. They came out and did the press conference right after with the Attorney General, that's a lawyer, and I'm not a lawyer, and they say that Pamela Smith is still in control of the DC Police Department. Terrence Cole or Turi Cole, who leads the DEA, does not call the shots. As long as he does not call the shots.
Well, that was a recent reverse, though. That was a recent reverse.
That came Friday, the Friday that just passed.
Yep, but initially, the president.
Everything doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is when she sent the memo to say effective immediately, and the the district attorney for the District of Columbia and the mayor of the District of Columbia said, "Y'all think we slow, but we not."
Yeah, but Trump can easily invert that if he wants to.
What you mean by inverted?
Yeah, he can easily flip the script and make it the same way. The same way that the president has come in and usurped this administration or plunder the police department from the mayor.
I don't believe he's plundered.
I think
the chief
he did.
of police is still in control, and that's what the child is saying.
The Trump administration, Trump just said this week that if the mayor doesn't get her act together, she would no longer be mayor. Well,
that's talking. They would have to get rid of home rule first.
Yeah,
you can't say that.
But I think Trump has already trumped home rule.
I don't think you'd read that.
Well, that's not true, because the way the president is moving right now, no one is stopping him. And then when I was doing my research, I think one of the things that people could have done, or someone could have done to stop him, is looking at the 1878 Posse Comitatus Act. And let me just tell people what that is. It restricts the use of the U.S. Army forces, U.S. Army, Air Forces, any sort of militaristic program against civilians in most cities, particularly over law enforcement.
Yeah.
So, but again, that's an act in 1878, but Trump has already deployed the National Guards. So it's happening. What the law says and what it should be, Trump trumps those laws, and he does exactly what he wants.
He don't give a damn about the laws.
It's happening.
The National Guards and the police takeover are two separate things and one offensive. Like a lot of people getting them two things mixed up. Trump is not in control of the DC Police Department.
But here's where I think
administratively he's not in control.
Based on the court, but on the court ruling the last Friday, he is not. The only thing they won in the court ruling, I read the entire ruling. Right?
Absolutely.
And they're going to court again this week coming up for further proceedings. They only gave them the ability and the authority to deal with turning over the immigration information.
But here's
as long as Pamela Smith say where the police go, she's still in control.
Yeah, but what I think the bigger picture that we're discussing here is Trump has the power and has demonstrated the power to make decisions as he sees fit, which has already happened. This is the reason why we're calling it a DC takeover. For the mere but here's the thing. Everybody has a perspective. That's yours, this mine. And the reality is that a president of the United States has come in, has plundered the police department from the mayor of DC, and has been able to make decisions on what he thinks is best, and it's happening now. If in fact the powers exist in the hands of the local officials, we wouldn't have the National Guards here right now.
The National Guard can come anytime he says it. They sent it before.
Right.
He didn't bring a National Guard with this police movement.
Right, but here's what the mayor has said. The National Guards are not necessarily needed. If so, she would have brought them in a long time ago. But
she don't have that power. But the mayor does not control the National Guard.
That's true, but she can make the request.
The president in our city does.
She can make the request, and if she thought it was necessary, for her to have the National Guards, she would have had the National Guards.
I'm cool with that, but he can do what he want to do as the president when it comes to the National Guard. D.C. has no say-so. It says in the Constitution that D.C. will be under the authority of Congress. He got the say-so to do that, no matter how me or you have a perspective on it. That's
correct.
Law. Everything else is perspective. That's law.
But that's where unintentional, so your point around the takeover, right? I still call it a takeover because that's where unintentional.
I call it a takeover too.
And that's where unintentional consequence has turned into an intentional consequence, right? And so what we're seeing is like when the request is that MPD officers must abide by these agents and these National Guard troops, right? They
work in tandem with
they must work in tandem with them.
Yes,
they have to patrol with them.
If he say work in tandem, we talk perspective. I don't agree with it. I was pulled over last night. MPD step to you first, and then if you don't clear none of that, you go to the immigration, everybody else come up, bro. I got pulled over last night in the hood.
Yeah,
but that's not the case with everybody, right?
Yeah.
That's not the case with everybody. There are people being pulled over by DEA agents, ICE agents, and
I've been on location putting DEA.
Hold on, let me
pulled over.
Let me hear the point for a second.
But there's videos.
That's made up.
Yeah,
that's not correct.
There's video evidence out that shows and prove that people in DC have been pulled over by ICE agents and arrested by ICE agents, right? Like that's true. Like that's not manufactured.
I'm not talking about by themselves.
Hold on, let him finish his point. Then I'll get to you.
Regardless, the point that I'm making is MPD is administratively has basically aligned where an officer must at all times be with the National Guard or with the federal forces. What does that mean? When you have 1,600 National Guard officers here, and they're all required to have an MPD officer with them.
That takes MPD with National Guard.
That is required.
It's no MPD with National Guard.
That is
what do you mean?
required.
Hold on. What?
He's saying that MPD must be embedded with National Guard. MPD is embedded with federal law enforcement. National Guard.
Well, let me just say this. Let me say this. The policy. No, it is your perspective. But let me just say this so we have clarity, because I don't want the viewers to feel befuddled or confused by what we're saying. What I think Jamal is saying, if I'm not speaking correctly, correct me. The policy as it's understood is that these law enforcement agents are going to work together, whether it's Homeland Security, National Guards, DEA, whether you see them all at once. We know they're two different things, but here's the
look up the policy.
We know they're two different things, but the reality is those different agents all exist. They come in clusters.
National Guards are not agents, man.
The point I'm making
is they are not with the police.
Break it down to
the only people with the police is law enforcement, feds, FBI, DA, all the alphabet boys.
We get
National Guard.
Yeah, we get that, but
the policy does require that MPD officers are leading National Guard.
Federal agents.
No, it's National Guard too. Okay,
so here, let me just say this. Everybody has a perspective. Yeah. That's yours.
I just want to finish my perspective.
Finish yours.
So the point that I'm making is, at the end of the day, MPD officers are adhering to you call them troops, whatever. regardless, we're pulling officers out from the DC community to respond to crime, right? When you have over 1,600 folks that they have to adhere to, right? They can't respond, and we saw this incident earlier this week. They couldn't respond to a 295 crash. Reason being, because they weren't available, right? Because they're all tending to the federal guidance for these federal officers. And that is, to me, is a takeover. It's an intentional consequence of what Trump is doing to deploy strategies, right? We don't have enough officers on the street anymore. So like now it's going to impact communities locally and have a local impact. So to me, that's a takeover.
Eon, your perspective.
It's 3,100 regular police here. It's hundreds and hundreds of National Guards here. National Guards and federal law enforcement are not the same thing. Head staff just had to get a National Guard permission to carry firearms. You can't enforce law enforcement without firearms. So what have they been doing for the past time they've been here? We saying that the city's safe. I'm passing
Nothing.
that part. National Guards and law enforcement is not the same thing. They wasn't deployed to do that here when they came in the 90s. I was here then when they had the weapons out. Now they're gonna have the weapons out. The second thing that I'm going to, if we saying that it's adherent to, I don't want to keep kind of like going back and
It's
forth with that
wordsmithing.
one.
Go ahead. Yeah.
But for sure, the only ones that's doing policing right now is the ATF, the FBI, and all that. National Guard is not doing traffic stops, bro.
Well, we're not saying National Guards are doing
That's law
traffic stops.
enforcement.
Right. We're not
Yeah,
saying
no, I'm
traffic.
not saying that.
Let me be really.
what I'm saying.
But let me be really clear about the point regarding these different bodies of entities that have been deployed here in the district to oversee and manage a marginalized community. That's the way I'm gonna say it. And here's what we know for a fact. Union Station had National Guards there. National Guards have also been deployed in certain communities within the District of Columbia. They may not, hear me out, they may not have the authority, to exercise law enforcement powers, but what we all can concur on and speak in one accordance is the National Guards is here by the request of the President of the United States, not the Mayor of the District of Columbia, to work in tandem with the different agents that he sees fits. They are not carrying guns. They don't have police powers. They're not correct. But as we know, they're not trained individuals that understand police. They're not policing. They're not trained individuals that carry guns. So there's a lot of tweaking and modifying that's taking place with the policy. And by the mere fact that we have this sort of dissension here, to me, speaks to the victory for the president because it's bifurcation. It's simply being able to divide and conquer and have people in this sort of strong perspective that we have. When the reality
don't have the knowledge of the civics that go on here. Like even the conversation that we talking about right now is the difference between a city that's a federal district, federal law, and state law. Even some of these terms that we throwing around. I done been through the justice system here. I know exactly what's going on between National Guard and federal law enforcement. I'm speaking from that perspective. When we use the words like abide, adhere to, things where you're being dictated to, those two different things. But that's my opinion.
No, I don't think we dissent with your opinion. I just think we're talking about
Pamela Smith is running the DC Police Department, and it's all over the news.
I think we're all aligned on that.
Yeah, we are all aligned on
As
that.
long as she's running the police department, it's not a takeover. A takeover is when the night before when Terry Cole came in and they did a roll call, and he said, "This is what we are doing tomorrow." That is a takeover.
I think that's a perspective because to me, my perspective about it is the city was functioning as the mayor saw fit before the president decided to appoint Pam Bondi to oversee the police department. Before that action was articulated, the police department was running under the authority of the mayor as Pam Smith, the chief of police, saw fit. When the president did a press conference and said, I am going to put Pam Bondi in charge of the DC Police Department, and all directives must be taken from Pam Bondi before any executive action or any action is made by Pam Smith, the chief of police. That's what the president said. To me, at that particular time, when that announcement was made, there was no working in tandem. It is what the president of the United States said he
What
felt
about
was
what the
best.
judge said Friday? Are we? Because we keep skipping that. Are we
But let's close this out, though. Let's just close this out in
judge on
terms of
Friday said that
takeover.
everything that you're saying is stopped.
Yeah, but let's just say this: before the judge came in, that is what the president of the United.
I did that, but the judge checked him just like the judge released.
I agree with
Garcia,
that.
And Trump said he was going to stand.
Correct.
CCOT. He ain't a CCOT.
I agree with that, but I want to
to
close out. I want to close out the language of takeover, that because I don't want the viewers to be confused by the
The
language.
mayor that you just mentioned rejected takeover and spoke to the attorney general and what the judge said. The judiciary branch. There's three branches of government.
Listen,
Trump is only one.
It's all, to me,
he's not all three yet.
But to me,
he's not all three
it's
yet.
all propagandizing language to support the theory or the narrative.
I ain't going with the propaganda. I'm going with the judge's order.
That's you, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's your perspective.
Trump going with it too. Parabombi going with it too. That's why Terry Cole ain't running the police.
All right, let me just get Cameron's perspective. Go.
I think the biggest thing is not the way that people that are massively educated in it see it. I think the reality is how does the everyday citizen see the takeover?
Well, one of the everyday citizens.
Let me get his perspective for a second.
An everyday citizen who's downtown marching feels that it's a takeover. That's what I'm thinking. When we're looking at people protesting and mothers upset and things of the sort, when we see this online, they're feeling this a takeover. So Trump may say on one end it's safe and the mother doesn't feel it's safe because of the National Guard moving through. So when we look at this in a holistic perspective, how does the person on the street who might not know as much as you, myself, or anybody else, how do they see it? And if they see it as a takeover, is it a takeover to the city?
No.
If majority of the people that are out there that are protesting, majority of people we understand have a majority understanding that this is a takeover, is that enough to call it a takeover?
Well, I think that depends on what side of the city you stay. Because if you're east of the river, you may feel it's a takeover. Sure. If you are west of the river, you may have a different perspective in how you conceptualize takeover.
East of the river, how would you feel as a takeover when they didn't even come there? Someone got shot in east of the river while the National Guard was over here. It hasn't been a murder in 7 days. The first day that they came out, there was a murder because somebody evidently didn't know
I could definitely tell you, I've been watching video on Instagram. Hear me out. I've been watching video on Instagram of the cluster of law enforcement coming in the hood. Yeah. And this may be a very popular video. Hear me out.
Yeah, no, that's real.
Yeah, I've seen it. And I don't know the specific neighborhood, but I've seen it. And I actually know people on the east of the river that have experienced. Eon may not have seen it. And that's your perspective.
No, I'm just asking. I'm just saying. I mean, I've been following.
Yes.
I did Madison Avenue,
right. But what I'm saying is that
I did been the road. Where were they at out southeast? People in southeast was complaining about them not being there.
Congress Heights. They were in Congress Heights.
Hold on, let them finish.
Throughout this week.
Yeah,
just posted up like they was on Bennett Road, like they're
no. Time out. Let's be clear about something.
We also don't know the vehicles these folks are driving in all the time too.
I got videos of it. I was there for 3 hours.
I saw your video.
Yeah,
I saw your video.
That's just one. I do it every day, all day.
Let's be clear about something. Because I
ain't making that up. A lot of this shit made up.
I hear you, but let's be clear about something. Because I want to be responsible about language on this show. What you saw and what I saw with that video was people driving being pulled over because tinted windows.
Checkpoint. It wasn't just tinted windows.
Well, that was majority of what was.
They did dead tags, tinted windows, seatbelts, lights,
correct.
Ice.
But the point is, it's not their job.
But also, I want to be clear that that's one form.
Tinted windows ain't their job. That's a law.
Hold up, no. Time out.
FBI shouldn't be enforcing local law.
Jamal, I just want to say this. That's one perspective of the police showing up. I don't want to skip around these perspectives because we just said to the public out there that you didn't see it. And what I'm saying is that you may not have seen them east of the river. We have.
They weren't posted up nowhere in Southeast like they was doing that. They don't even have to check in the last 7 days. It doesn't
even. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter if you're posted up. You shouldn't even be there. It doesn't. Not you. Law enforcement.
Saying they didn't do that in Congress Heights at all. They was complaining in Congress Heights. Hillcrest, the people that's doing violence and other was complaining when the person got shot. I ain't making that up.
What do you think?
I don't know what he talking about. I ain't disputing what he talking about, but they were not there, and it was regular DC police on MLK and Malcolm X.
So where do you
go, Jamal?
The federal officers that told them that pulled up on that front porch and told them to not smoke. What do you think that was?
On what front porch? You talking about what the U.S. Park Police did?
No, that wasn't Park Police. But the point is, you
Well,
didn't.
listen, this is what I don't want to do. If you didn't see it, you didn't see it. I want to move on because I don't want. No. But what I'm saying,
this question if I know exactly which one he's talking about.
Right, but if
That was in Southeast.
it was in, you didn't see
Saying
it.
on the one where you saying he asked him about smoking weed and the brother told him he was smoking a cigarette. Right. That's all I know
Yes.
exactly what it. I
Yes.
posted it first.
Yes.
That's in the hood.
I posted it. I know exactly what you're talking about. You said I know exactly.
So,
what
but
you're
we're
saying.
making a
That's
case.
coming through. The jump outs coming through Tuesday and Thursday all the time.
That's not
No.
DC police.
But
It don't matter. DC police was with them.
The point is, the
Was
FBI.
they? Was
the point,
they or was
the
they
point
not?
that I'm
No, we
making
get
is,
that.
with them.
Listen, we
The
get
FBI.
we get that.
I be out there all the time.
But,
They
okay, so
come
let me
through
ask
all
you
the
this.
time.
Let me
This Donald Trump takeover
but let
ain't
me
new to
ask
me.
you this. What's the point that you're making?
What point I'm making is
Yes.
that DC police do this all the time. This ain't new. The gun squad was coming through with U.S. Marshals
For sure.
5 years ago.
Yeah, but here's the reality.
This ain't new to me. It might be new to everybody else.
This
watching
no.
TV. This ain't new to me.
This ain't new to me either. Because let me just say
mean,
this.
I'm trying to get a little twisted with
Listen,
it.
I hear you, but let me just say this. I may be very clean.
I'm not challenging your cleanness. I'm saying I totally without a legal registration. I got the
listen
Delta
to what
gun
I'm saying.
squad. Like I lived that for real. Just a problem. Somebody might kill me.
You gotta hear my perspective. In order for us to be heard, we have to engage in an intellectual conversation by letting people's perspective start and end. Here's my perspective. My perspective, not yours. My perspective is I grew up in this city. As clean cut as I am, I know about all the trenches as anybody else who's been through any system, corrections or otherwise. So the point that I'm making is what you may have seen and who you know and what you've posted, I'm very privy to it as well. And in my experience, I was born in 72, so I'm 53. You're a little younger than I am.
77.
Right, so you're a little younger than I am. But here's the reality. In my experience and my observation, I remember all the jump outs. I remember guys who've done A, B, and C. The reality is it has not been normalized probably within the last, I would say maybe 10 years that you saw a cluster of law enforcement, meaning DEA, Homeland Security, FBI showing up in the community.
I have never seen them on this level.
Right.
Not even in the 90s. I've never seen it.
That's the point I'm
That's
making.
the point we're making. That is the point that we're making. DC police jumping out and doing their work has always
been. You said to me just now that the feds shouldn't do it at all. I'm saying that the feds do it. They just don't do it on that level. Now, you in a conversation of we saying to what level it is. The FBI, the DEA, done came to Kennedy Street since Benny Lee Lawson killed two.
So then here's the question:
like,
are we all in agreement that the feds should not be involved at this level?
This a federal district, man. We got to make some type of goalpost. It's DC. The feds always out.
But
there.
the question,
U.S. Park Police.
But the question, you're
circumventing.
But I think you're circumventing my question.
How?
Because here's
I'm
how.
trying to answer it directly.
At the level that we see the feds cluster and gallivanting from one neighborhood to the next.
No, federal agents shouldn't walk a beat.
Okay, let's move forward then, because I think we're on one accord.
That's my only point.
We're on one accord.
They shouldn't walk a beat.
We're on one accord. That's what I was trying to say. I think it took us a long way, but we got there.
They doing more than walk a beat. I'm upset. What
are you upset about?
For one, I don't know about nobody else in here, so I don't want to disrespect nobody, but everyone in my family has legal guns. When I got to go to the corner store at night, get sheets and funnel, and the FBI ain't out there, I got to take my strap to the store. So that means that if I don't got it, something might happen to me. If I do get caught with it, I'm a felon in possession. I might go away for 10 years. It's a way bigger situation, and it's no disrespect to you or nobody else, but there's a saying by, I want to say Benjamin Franklin, and I don't want to quote it like this, but it say for people that will give up a little bit of freedom and liberty for temporary security doesn't deserve either. So I'm not going to sit here and wait for Trump to take control of my whole city and town when we have a local government here and we have the Home Rule Act in 1973. I'm just not going to understand it. If a person say that they feel safer, I'm going to give an answer that my aunt gave. My aunt live on the Gold Coast, right?
Yep.
She says that, okay, Eon, you're asking me this question, but maybe you shouldn't ask me this question. Maybe you should ask your cousins that live east of the river. I don't see it. So in that perspective, I got to say that that's cool, but I live in a whole nother zip code than where my family live in.
Fair enough. Jamal.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I should not see the person who used to patrol a government building, a downtown federal government building, the Reagan building in the streets trying to lock people up for local crimes, right? And so at the end of the day, like those folks aren't responsible to you and I, right? Like we can't hold those folks responsible. We can hold MPD responsible because we elect the mayor, we elect the city council.
Correct.
And so like our local law enforcement has had the ability to see crime go down, has had the ability to put policy in place to allow us to make our streets safer. Am I saying that it's perfect? No, there's an imperfect balance. There's an imperfect things that we need to work out more in our public safety ecosystem. But at the end of the day, it's in none of those agencies' mission to enforce local DC law every day.
Question: how would you describe the current state of crime in the district?
Low.
30-year low.
I would not agree with that.
And I like that.
Okay.
But let me just say one thing before we go.
Yes.
I break down crime into two different things. It's my personal thing. I break down crime in DC or anywhere with murders and crime. Okay. Murders at a low. I think crime is at a low.
Yeah, so
Cameron.
I look at crime holistically once again, because we may have a low, but the question is what is really stopping the crime?
Okay.
What is the thing that's moving the crime? Is it gentrification that's happening with people moving out? Is it the fact that, okay, this young person is in jail? How are they, kind of bringing these statistics together? And I've been a part of a lot of different organizations where we see them collecting data and the data not move through in the way they need to move through so we can get a clear understanding of what's happening. So my family, my wife, she's done data several times over and recognizing that in some organizations, they are taking data in such a way that is not as clear as it needs to be. So, and I don't want to call out these spaces, but I've been in spaces knowing that the data that is put out is not as trustworthy as it should be. Not only that, by me continually engaging with our young people, I recognize that we are not stopping the crime. It's only going to exacerbate eventually because of the mentality. Similar to how if you are a person who does not have wealth, if you don't have wealth and if you don't know what wealth is, more than likely you're not going to have a wealthy family. Your children will not be wealthy. And if our mentality is such that our young people have a mentality of crime, of poverty in a sense, what will happen is they will pass that back to their young brothers. And so that's what's happening.
Well, what they're passing along is trauma.
Exactly, but that's what's happening in our society, in our ecosystem in DC. A lot of our young people's mentality is such that the way they talk about crime is the way that I might talk about football. The way they talk about crime is the way that I might talk about something I really love. These young people can put things together so much so that it's like they're a genius in these types of things. And I'm saying that with respect to them. And mind you, I'm going to say this again. My organization's focus is to love them. But I think one of the major issues that we have in DC is on one end, we say, well, racism exists. I'm with that. Racism exists. The structure itself does not allow our young people the opportunity to flourish. But at the same time, we have people that are supposed to support our young people that don't tell them the truth. And what that means is they do not tell our young people that this is not okay. They know who's pulling triggers. They know who's rolling and doing these types of things. But a lot of the people that are supposed to be in power are not being forthright. What is happening is I think we're worried about being popular. And so when we see something like the quote unquote DC takeover, we have to ask ourselves, what is the remedy? And I'm not asking Trump what the remedy is. I'm not asking Bowser what the remedy is. What is the remedy for us as people? As a black people, what is the remedy for us? We have to become fed up to say this cannot be tolerated. So then we have street love go in. We have these organizations go in and not try to be, I'm your homie, I'm cool, I'm fly, got Balenci's on. Hey, bro, we got to change this. And whatever we need to do to change this, we got to change it. I see a lot of the times people do a lot for popularity. They go into the juvenile facility, they go into these schools, and they get the cameras rolling behind them to say, you know what, I spoke to these kids. I was on the stage with these kids, but then leave those kids high and dry. And those kids come in contact with probably a brother like you that says, he's a real one. We need more real ones to step in and take over. Otherwise, Trump would never have to take over.
Let me get into some statistics. So I did some research on a historic drop in violent crime 2024. Overall, violent crime in D.C. fell 35% in 2024 compared to 2023, the lowest level reported in over 30 years. Homicides down 32% from 274 in 2023 to 187 24. Robberies decreased by 39%. Carjacking plummeted by 53%. Assault with a dangerous weapon down by 27%. So when we look at the crime trends through July of 2025, as of July 29th, the total violent crime decreased by 26%, homicide down by 11%, robbery fell by 28%. Again, this is all since July 29 of 25. Assault with a dangerous weapon down by 21%. Sex abuse down by 47%. Property crime down by 5%. And the overall crime in the district is down by 8%. Eon.
All right. Going with what Brett just said, right? I seen something. I'm stealing right now. This person, I forgot this brother's name. He was on CNN last night. They quoted some crime statistics. He challenged, yo, you believe those? And the person said, oh, maybe I don't believe those. Do you believe the other ones? So I kind of dig the argument of what crime stats we believe, right? And I do understand that they just got rid of the commander for playing with the crime stats.
The lieutenant.
Okay, the lieutenant,
Yeah.
all right? With that being said, I'm trying to stay away from the crime stats, right? And let me say it, I hate for to use the word ignorant, but I dumbed it down a little bit.
Yep.
It's hard to play with the murders. Like, if it's 200 murders and it's 150 murders, I'm kind of asking the record, how do we play with the murders? Are the murders down? Let me ask you, because you said crime is not down. Can I do that? Can I ask?
Fair enough.
So you asked about murder and you asked about crime.
I separated the two, so I'm sticking you on a high seat with just the bodies. Are murders down?
Okay,
And
go.
how do we?
And I don't have the answer to
You don't have the statistics to say
the
so.
murders are down, but what he asked was about the crime.
No, I'm asking specifically about.
Let me ask you
So
this.
that's
What's
a
the
different
bottom
question.
line?
Go ahead.
That we can play with the stats that they saying about it's violent crime down, carjacking and this and this and that. But if you stick to just the homicide, you can't do that with that. The homicides are down. That's all I'm saying with that. I'm not making no major point.
So what it sounds like is that you probably dissent with the Trump administration that homicides in this city are
Well,
up.
Trump was quoted as saying,
Or
that
how
this
people
Trump,
feel.
Trump was quoted as saying that the homicides here was the highest that it has ever been. That is an outright lie.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Anyone agree or
well,
disagree with that? That's an outright lie.
I think we're all on the same page that there's always a sort of extreme and stretch to what the president says. So we don't take anything as being full plausible. So that's neither here or there. Jamal.
I just. Oh, go ahead.
No, I mean, I was gonna say, as I like hearing you talk, because I start nodding my head yes, and then I'm like, no.
Like yes, yes, you're
I'm
going. No,
asking.
hold on, Eon. He was saying yes, you're going in the right direction with the Democrats. Come on.
But I served on the Juvenile Justice Advisory Committee that oversaw our jail system and our juvenile detention centers and those things. And simply put it, like, the crime that young people are committing today, I mean, one crime is too many, right? But the crime we're seeing young people commit today is crime of opportunity, right? They're committing crimes to gain something more and to gain something better. Robberies to get money, stealing to do that, theft, and these things are leading to egregious actions, but these are opportunity crimes mostly, right? And so what I think the whole tactic around people thinking like this police, the police visibility is going to allow us to drive down crime. At a certain point, it just won't work, and it ain't sustainable. It's costing nearly $500,000 every day to staff the level of troops and federal forces to patrol DC. $500,000. You do that for an entire month. That's $15 million.
And let's keep in mind that the president also usurped $1 billion from the DC budget.
And that's the point I was going to make, like with the opportunity crime, right?
They would have went to public safety.
That would have went to
going to public
If
safety.
they give us back our $1 billion, we can invest in our police. We can invest in our public safety ecosystem. We can invest in job creation. But $1 billion taken from us, you can't tell me you care about crime decreasing, but also do the exact opposite things that make crime increase.
Well, let me push back. Go ahead, Cameron.
How valuable is a baby girl? How valuable is a person's life? And when you say there's opportunity crimes, I understand that, and I can connect with you on that. At the same time, again, I'm connecting kneecap to kneecap, chest to chest with these young people. And what I recognize is these young, there was a person you might know, I forget his name, he said DC is a war zone. and people on
Oh
tabloids.
yeah, I said that too.
Yeah, people said on tabloids it's not a war zone. DC is in fact a war zone, and I'm saying this clearly because our young people believe that they're at war. They believe that they're at war. They believe. I have a young person. His name, his email, as I'm setting his email up, was Little Iraq. So that's his name. And so I'm talking from firsthand experience on doing the work. And so now when I recognize that, how do we go at these young people that are at war?
Well, let's just call a thing here, and I think we need to be
think
more.
it's a war zone.
Well, let's be more transparent.
We can.
I think part of the problem is twofold. The Trump administration probably wouldn't have even come in and thought there was a need to take over anything if, in fact, people probably didn't feel that something is going on in the city, be that as it may. And he says that, oh, it's not just D.C., we're going to look at other cities, states, etc. But I think the bigger picture is this. Anytime you sort of take or plunder or usurp resources from marginalized communities, whether we took home economics out of the school system, we took mechanical and trades out of the school system, midnight basketball and other programs don't exist as much. You almost have to be in the criminal justice system and corrections to benefit from all of these vouchers and programs and back to school, this, etc. My thinking is, if you already had these things in place, our young folks wouldn't have a famished appetite for money, because income is a sustenance. It's a part of our survival trajectory in life. All of us work because we need funding to live. A lot of our young folks, their homes are dealing with financial insecurity. Parents are not working. We have $1 billion that has been taken from the local government, but then we also are looking at a Doge committee where Elon Musk is no longer on that team, that has come in and unemployed people, nearly unalive people, and create a demise for people's families and circumstances. So when we look at the crux of what's really going on, the root of the problem, when you sort of excavate and peel back all those layers of onions, that young person, that family wants the same quality of life that the Trump administration has, that I have, that you have, and you have. And that is to wake up every single day and be able to say that I too matter. I'm validated by being able to have access to employment. I'm validated by being able to take care of my family. I'm validated by being able to have proper health care. That's what really matters. First of all, I don't even believe in black on black crime. I think that's a propaganda that's made up to make us have self-loathing, to feel like I hate Eon because he's black, or I hate Jamal or Cameron. I think it is a war of poverty, and everybody is famished and hungry. It's like one piece of cheese and this maze full of mice, and everybody is fighting just so their family can eat. And by any means necessary, if I have to come after you and take your head off yours and yours so I can survive, then may the best man wins. And I think that's really the crux. Our young folks, why can't we have our young folks doing apprenticeships for Nike and other companies, where a lot of these young folks are very creative in drawing? They could be a part of an apprenticeship program. Why a lot of the summer youth, not a lot, but there's a significant number of summer youth employment programs, I believe, that don't always challenge the cognition of our young folks. They give them arm's reach into their future by having skills that they've developed. So I think a part of the problem is a social classism and an economic stratification that is keeping our young folks feeling that if you have and I don't, I'm going to take.
The question I have for you is, how do we get our young people to think on that level in a capitalistic society? Our young people see the flash, the glitz, and the glam on social media, so they're being brainwashed every single day not to live a $50,000, $60,000 lifestyle. They are being brainwashed to live a $200,000, $300,000 lifestyle. And because of that, they want to wear the Marys, they want to wear the Louis Vuitton, they want to wear the Balenciagas. That is their dream. Their dream is not, in my opinion, from what I've seen, a lot of their dream on the surface level is not to wake up every day and take care of their family, even though they need to be taught that.
I think they're perpetuating Dr. King's sermon, his speech. I have a dream. They have a dream. that one day they will have what Orlando has. They have a dream that I will have what Eon has. They have a dream that I will be sitting where Jamal is. They have a dream that one day I can have my own organization and be an executive director. And when you feel hopeless, when you feel demoralized, when you feel nobody cares about you, it's hard to become something you can't see when there isn't an example of that, Jamal.
Yeah, but also, I don't want to make this whole public safety thing about as if it's all about young people, right? Because to be clear, like in CJCC, the Criminal Justice Council, they put out a report. Actually, like youth crime in DC is also down, right? So it's like this isn't just about like young people. This is a propaganda narrative that the president wants to shape young black men in DC as being the crime drivers, right? And I mean, I got cursed out on Twitter a few days ago, and everything was about it's your people that's causing the crime, whether they know I'm young and they know I'm black, right? And so like this is not just about young people. I think as a public safety ecosystem, we can do a lot more, right? But what we're promoting is as if young people are the root to all of the crimes in DC, which just isn't the case.
No.
And so, I mean, like when these curfew zones and stuff like that, I mean, I grew up on curfew zones and I've seen them before. Sometimes they are necessary in egregious situations, but like that does not, you put a Band-Aid on some of these issues, right? And like you said, when you take away resources, like, and I do want to go back to your point on this takeover. Like, we
about to get Eon fired up again.
Let me be clear. Like we have been under a takeover for 204 years, right? And so, like tomorrow, Congress can pass an act. A Republican-led Congress that does whatever the fuck Donald Trump tells them to do can pass an act and say DC is now under a control board, or DC does. We're stripping $2 billion from DC.
Or we get rid of the 13th Amendment.
Yeah, or like, and we've seen this before. We've seen, I mean, even Democrats, we've seen Congress overturn our laws, everything from needle exchange, where that was driving down HIV rates, everything from trying to overturn our marijuana laws.
The law, they stopped the overhaul of the crime code.
The criminal code.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, we've been under a takeover, right? Like when we're subjected to somebody from Tennessee to Ohio that can control what's happening here, that's a takeover.
The founding of the city was a takeover.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we now agree on takeover.
So we made it. We got there.
We agree, but we agree in this circle. I just disagree with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
They acting like they took something with Pam, but that's really a loss.
Well, here's the loss. Here's the real loss to everybody who works in the district, lives in the district, and you pay taxes. The real loss is taxation without representation. That's the real loss.
Well, let me question that. We saying it's a loss, and I'm gonna play a word game with it. We saying it's a loss, but it was never ours. Like the people that was here, it took 50,000 people to be in a place to make it a state. It was only 3,000 people here in 1890, right? So it was never created to do that. So when I'm saying that it was written down that shall have authority over it, you know, most people that was into states' rights, for an example, the reason Southwest is so small is because a lot of people from Virginia that came here when they gave the land said, to hell with this. In the beginning of the District of Columbia, residents that came from Maryland and residents that came from Virginia that knew their states' rights and knew that they needed to not be taxed without representation, they were able to vote in Maryland and Virginia. A lot of people don't know this. But the reason Southwest is so small is that people from Virginia said to hell with it. They had an opportunity to go back. That's why they went. So not that I say this because I'm with you.
Jamal,
because they wanted to still own slaves. Right.
But even if you wanted to, some people argue that, but some people say that they wanted their rights in Maryland and Virginia. Maryland did the same thing. They voted in Maryland. Now, I'm not going to say that you're wrong about them wanting to own slaves. That could be true, too. But they also did not want to lose a right to vote at all, whether they own slaves or not.
And two things can be true at the same time. Yeah. And I think that's what we're hearing.
And so, I mean, my thing is like, I mean, nobody intended for DC to have nearly 1 million people living here, right?
Correct.
Even the founding fathers said we were going to have to revisit this issue. In the Federalist Papers, they outlined this stuff, right? The problem is, I'm personally sick of Republicans who keep talking about they care about the Constitution and the principle of the country, but damn sure we can't live up to it when it comes to a majority black and brown population. Right, so like I think if we're going to really tackle the root cause with some of this stuff,
Well, do you think the Democrats live up to it?
No, No.
Okay.
I mean, we had a chance in 2021 as Democrats from the top to the bottom to make DC the 51st state, and it was two Democratic senators that held out, right? And so again, like this, this is about race. It has nothing to do with our ability to govern and to run a state. You look at how every state became a state. They either became a state because it was a compromise, a political compromise of Republicans and Democrats.
Yep.
If you're going to add a state that has more Democrats, add a state that has 6 more Republicans, or it was a slave trade, right? If we're going to add a free state to the union, then we're going to add a slave state to the union, right? And so all of the history of statehood has always been about race and subjugation.
And that's what the rezoning or the redistricting is happening with the Republicans, and now the Democrats are saying we want to do the same thing.
Yep.
But
What?
I didn't really hear you mention the fact about if DC was to become a state, so they get 2 more seats to such and such and such with those. Like me, like you keep mentioning Democrats and Republicans. I ain't with I'm an independent. I'm a gangster. But anyway,
Are all independents gangsters?
I don't know. Some independents, Republicans, they free Larry Hoover, the second chance that got Donald Trump name. Don't get me into that. Like I can do that. But yeah, Donald Trump name on the thing to free the whole lot of my buddies. So certain things I'm gonna go both ways with. Like I don't.
So then I wonder. So then, does Donald Trump leave many of us feeling ambivalent? Because I think bringing it back to the people,
I agree with that.
there
Not
are
for me,
people who, for instance, I believe it was, and don't quote me on this, but I believe the 3-year-old girl who was shot or murdered in the district. I believe one of her relatives said that she espouses Donald Trump having these law enforcement in communities, because I think I heard someone mention that most of the crime that's happening are by 200 plus reoffenders.
I don't know
so
if I
it's
believe that, but
it's a minority.
I seen that over.
Yeah,
all
it's
over
a
the place.
minority that's put in the city under siege. Cameron.
So I believe DYRS got written up or something to that effect.
Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they basically were under a bit of fire because of the recidivism and all that was going on, and then also the statistics and data that was coming out. And so that's what I wanted to bring up, talking about it. So a lot of recidivism. I go into the juvenile facility, a young brother might be there one day. He's like, okay, I'm getting out. He comes back a week later. And after
People
that,
promise. My fault. People promise. That's the 200 group he talking about. People promise.
Okay.
So it's a lot of recidivism happening in the city, and the question becomes, what do we do with these young people that continue to commit these crimes?
I mean,
But you talking about real bona fide juveniles, right? Not juveniles charged as an adult.
What is a real bona fide juvenile?
A real bona fide juvenile, from my perspective, is a juvenile that's not in the adult court. For an example, DHS, where Janine Pirro keeps complaining about some people she can't touch. If you're a real bona fide juvenile, the district attorney for the DC is the only person that can prosecute you. The district attorney for DC,
Correct.
Attorney General for the District of Columbia only
Because
prosecutes.
she wants to get her
misdemeanors.
hands on you. That's why she
That's
said
why she want to lower
that
the
particular
thing. Now,
young
me,
kid.
I was charged as an adult at 16. I was charged as I'm no
Yeah.
longer a child.
Yeah.
According to law. That's all I'm saying.
Which is, again, a propaganda narrative that they keep saying that young people can't
I
be
was
charged.
trying to get you in a super
Yeah.
predator. Like
Right,
I was
but-
a super
Oh,
predator.
yeah.
But they
The same fear mongering they did in the 90s.
the Trump administration keeps saying young people aren't charged in it. Like there are cases where young people are charged. That's already happening, right?
It's a whole youth
I'm not-
But I think
civil
I think
rights
what they
law.
use.
No.
But I
So-
think what
so-
they use. Go ahead, Jamal.
I'm not saying that's the solution to it all, but we also can't keep talking. They can't keep talking about a justice system that they control, right? The DC doesn't have control over the systems that are prosecuting and locking the people up in DC and holding them accountable, right? So, like you said, they are understaffed by like 80, 90 attorneys,
According to
right? They're also going to a court system that is not controlled by DC government. It's controlled by the federal government, appointed judges by the federal government.
You talking about DC Superior Court?
Yeah.
But the laws that they apply in there are from city council, though.
But they have to. I mean, yeah, they have to apply local law. But these are federal judges.
Only prosecuting and doing the laws are local though.
The
laws come-
judges are appointed
The
by the
judges
federal
are.
government.
The judges are. And then when you are sentenced in that court, you are sentenced to the Attorney General of the United States. That's because DC is federal. But the laws that are applied in Superior Court come from city council.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
They're enforcing the district law, right? Again, that's a policy thing. But what I'm saying is, again, the justice system as a whole that they're talking about
Yeah.
is a justice system that is appointed and ran by The federal government.
Nah, I got to push back. Janine Pirro is complaining right now about the Incarceration Reduction Amendment Act, which comes from City Council, which is only applied in Superior Court, which that's technically not true because if you do certain things, they'll do it in federal court. But it's only defended by a U.S. attorney.
I think it feels like, if I'm hearing you, I think it also feels like Janine Pirro is saying that we can't get our hands on juveniles because they're protected by local laws. And if we sort of change the federal code or we change the regulation where you can be now charged as an adult even at 14 or 15 years of age. I think one of the examples—
They will still have to lower it through a D.C. council.
Well, I think she's trying to trump the D.C. council or perhaps even get rid of the D.C. council because to some, they may not seem to be as effective.
They have a piece of legislation in the House of Congress now trying to determine what our local laws will look like around criminal code, right? But again, like the point that I'm making is like this whole idea of being subjected to, right? So we pass our own laws and they are adhering to local council laws.
I got out of jail on local laws that superseded their federal laws.
And do I think we have a imperfect system? Yes.
I mean,
right.
D.C. Superior Court was created in the 70s. It's a parallel court for the federal court because they did not want to deal with what? We can use your word, racism. They didn't want to deal with riff-raff crimes.
Yep.
So they sent what? Armed robbery, murder, kidnapping to Superior. That's why there is a Superior Court.
Yep.
To your point.
And I was just going to say it's very quick. It's an excellent point that you're making and something you said earlier. I'm not sure if we want to center this only on youth.
Yeah.
Correct? Because I think part of the reason why we're focusing on this discussion is because the Doge worker, 19-year-old, I believe he was 19-year-old, that was beat badly was
Hyattsville youth.
Or youth that come across district lines. I mean, we're so close. So I think that's part of the reason, perhaps. I'm not in President Trump's head. I don't know.
Yeah, but they're attacking this law that I just was discussing with him, right? That's not even about kids. The people that benefit from this law are my age, 40, 50, 60 years old. When they clumping this together saying, oh, D.C. Council is crazy. They want to pass a law to say you don't get prosecuted. That's totally incorrect.
Well, go ahead.
No one 40, 50, 60 years old are the carjackers. So I understand they saying that this is ridiculous, but these are not the people that benefited from the law. The people that's out here helping the community at 40, 50, 60 years old is the people that benefit from this law.
But do we
15-year-olds are not getting this law.
But do we think the laws in the district are weak, or do we realize that many cases are prosecuted, but as you know, they're mitigated? And in the district, it feels like a lot of people do walk.
It's our laws that is the reason why crime is at a 30-year low. Period.
Say it again.
It's our laws.
That's right.
That allowed the district's crime to be at a 30-year low.
I mean, and some programs I would have to throw in there.
Yeah, but like
because
that's all
remember in the 90s,
DC government.
right? And this might be, I forgot the word we're looking for. It might be subjective, right? But in the 90s, when the murder rate was 480, almost 500, from 89 to maybe 93, 94, right? A lot of the people that were being held accountable for those killings were multiple killers.
Yeah.
Yeah, reoffenders, yeah.
You don't really have dudes that get to 10 and 12 jumps right now. And just
but has a
walk
history
around
repeated itself with the young folks we see today?
Yeah, but you don't have a whole bunch of Wayne Purries and you don't have a bunch of them dudes that just walk around and they know nowadays that they done killed 10, 15 people.
But here's the question. Does it matter when your mom's standing over a casket of a child?
Yeah, if we talking only about the numbers. If I'm talking about my mother, of course not, that's personal. But if we only talk about numbers, just like when you talk about war and the general said, oh, we lost 15,000 troops. One is important, but when you're talking in that perspective, the number is not.
Correct.
You're saying that there's not a lot of young people who are getting those type of numbers in regards to killing a homicide? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I can say that it's not a bunch of known 10-time killers that's popular that's supposed to boy. Nah,
that's fair.
I will say that emphatically.
That was the word.
All right, I'm saying even if you look at the killings in town, 200 a year, it's not a whole bunch of 15-year-olds that's responsible for 10 or 15 of them.
I concur with that.
I was
Okay.
maybe not 10 to 15, but there's a lot of
4 or 5, sure, I go for that. But I'm saying back in the 90s, you had dudes
Sure.
right now that's convicted of 19 killings.
Sure.
You don't
Hold
have
up.
a bunch of those dudes no more.
Let me finish your
no,
perspective.
that was
That was it?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
it. I was trying to ask and make sure I
Like,
understood what
they
you're saying.
don't let them type of dudes, like you don't have a bunch of, I don't want to use this red dude, you don't have a bunch of 1,000, 2,000 kilo dudes here no more. Like, it's not me making
Ain't
it
no
up,
Ray
they
for
just
Edmonds.
don't.
Ain't no Ray for Edmonds on the street no more.
Yeah.
But they don't let some of that stuff evolve to a certain point no more, in my opinion.
Well, listen, the Rayful Edmond and the Wayne Perry, that's my generation. I'm sure it's yours as well. But the reality is, it feels very cyclical, even for me, remembering what life was like in 1993 and 1989. Whether you had the Alpos, the Wayne Perrys, and I can go on and on with other names I choose to not necessarily mention here. The point is, it still feels like 20, 30 years later, we are
It
revisiting
feel like that to
it.
you though?
If I
When
had
you come outside in your nice shoes and your nice clothes and your car, do you really feel like back then when dudes used to say, let me get your title?
What I feel is having a different perspective because I'm older and I sort of navigate the environments that I can afford to be in is very different from when I was 20 and I just lived in this community and hung around a certain caliber of people. Is very different than having the resources, going back to resources, having the resources, the capital, and the education to put myself in different environments. And at a certain age in life, or not necessarily age, but at a certain point in life, you do want a different quality of life. Everybody who lives in the projects isn't project of the projects. Yep. That's just by their circumstances.
Well, I just seen on the news
And
that
so-
Arlington had its first murder the other day. Maybe
Yep,
we should
it
just
did.
move to Arlington.
No, don't come to Virginia.
But you wanna know-
DC feels like a bit of an anomaly to me. In the
In
way
what
that,
perspective, yeah.
in the way that we exist. I mean, we have a lot of resources in DC, more than other states. You go to North Carolina, you go to places in Baltimore, it's like it's dilapidated in ways that are not familiar with the young people in DC. They go to the library. I mean, you might go to what's that, Woodland. You might go to different places, and it's still project housing. But even the projects look 10 times better than some streets you ride down in Baltimore. And so when you go to a school like Ballou, or you go to a school like H.G. Woodson, and you see the facility, but not only that you have access to these types of things, when you talk about what it was like 30 years ago, maybe, and you say that it's reminiscent of what it could be like it is today, I sit back and say, well, why is it the way it is, knowing that we do have a lot of resources and so many programs
And black leaders.
and black leaders?
We had black leaders then too, though.
No, I think
the
resources. Go ahead.
But the resources weren't as they were now. And so when we talk about having the National Guard coming to D.C., I say to myself, why is the National Guard even here when we have these type of resources?
But that's propaganda. We already agreed on that.
I'm saying why is the National Guard here when we have these type of resources? I'm acknowledging that we have a substantial amount of resources. I have a young brother, a young guy now that I mentor, no matter his situation, live right across the street from the police station. My man was able to wake up and go to work, barely do anything at work and get paid whatever he was getting paid. And not only that, have access to another program if he really wanted to. So some young people, because a lot of times, programs need a token child to boom their program off. That's what's happened. They get a little black boy to go shine and put that shirt on, and they get some data points, and they go get $1,000.
So let's close this out and segue into, we've put all the perspectives on the table. We've done a lot of talking. What is it that we can do as a community? What can be done as leaders? What can be done as community activists that I think will move the needle and shift the thinking in our community and in this city and many cities across the country, just like DC?
I'd like to go first on that one. I think, man, people that can really articulate what's going on, like these two brothers was able to speak. They may be even saying the same thing that I'm saying and vice versa, but it has to come in a way where everybody understands it. And I think you had to have true intention. So what I want to say is that from a person like me, him, or anybody else, the main thing that I think people, whether you subculture or you pop culture, that you got to be informed.
Do you think people are not informed? And
A whole bunch of people are not informed, in my opinion, because some people believe that, you go to the feds for this or you go to the city for this and something like. They don't understand civics here. They don't understand that as long as it's in our Constitution that it shall have the authority over, we only wishing.
And
Donald Trump could come and do whatever he wanted. He could wipe his feet on DC.
Yep. And do you understand?
I think I understand.
That may be your purpose in life then. Your purpose in life
I
with
might
giving.
not say it the right way, so my
Well,
purpose
no,
might
no, because
sound
one thing we can all say is
you ain't
you're
say
very
takeover.
passionate. You're very passionate. So
yeah,
with
yeah.
that type of passion and that articulation, I think your trajectory may be to get out there and start to educate not just young folks, people who are unaware of resources and how to access them, even if you're building a cohort of other forward thinkers like yourself. Cameron, go.
What I think we need to do is take responsibility. And why I say that is if someone can take something from you, they always had the ability to take it from you. If Trump can come in and take something from you, he always had the ability. And it's not just Trump, it's Big Daddy government. Big Daddy government has always had the ability to take whatever they want. And so as a black man, we have to be responsible and accountable to our communities, to take care of our families, and to take care of our communities. We got to get back. If you change your thinking, you'll change your habits. You change your habits, you'll change your actions. When you change your actions, you'll change your outcome. And when you change your outcome, you'll change your income. And that is the core of what we need to do. We're arguing about the wrong things. We spend
So what's the action item to move the needle?
We have to deploy, we have to, one, get men together. Specifically, and this is about our community. We have to get black men together to stand up for our communities. That is what it is. It's not about connecting with us, and we can connect if we want to, but the heart of what we have to do is ensure that we're cross-connecting with our communities to ensure that we're raising up the next generation. And if we do not do that, at some point, it's not going to be 30 days. At some point, it's going to be the next level, where it's not a peaceful movement by the National Guard. It's something more horrific than what we're seeing now. Right now, this is a teaser. There may be something coming along the line, and we cannot wait. I said this to you last time. Trump being in office is the best thing that could have happened to black folks. And the reason that is because we're not getting rocked to sleep by him, by the Democratic Party. We're not going to get rocked to sleep anymore. When Trump puts the fire under our butt because he's showing us what they are, what they've always been, now we can say we got to stand up.
So the Democrats been forcing us Kool-Aid.
The Democrats have been forcing this Kool-Aid and the Republicans have been forcing this Kool-Aid. The only thing is the Republicans forced the Kool-Aid and called it Christ.
Jamal, go. He has that look like I'm going to let you know something right now, brother.
Well, Democrats have failed on many fronts, but Democrats are also the only people who have paved the way for progress in this country, right? We wouldn't even have the right to vote if it wasn't for a Democrat who passed the Civil Rights Act, right? So, but I think my call to action is simple. I think people have to see politics as a way of progress, right? I think there's so much distrust, and rightfully so, in politics, but distrust should not lead to disengage. And so when we think about the pivotal moments that has advanced us as people in this country, the pivotal moments that have allowed us to have access to economic opportunity, to get the right to vote, that's all because of politics and policy. And I'm not saying everybody needs to run for office, but I'm saying is people need to engage in how policy is shaped and how politics is determined. If not, then we'll continue to have people making decisions on our behalf that isn't informed by us or isn't by us, basically. So I think people have to see politics as and so you talked about teaching in schools. Civic engagement has to be taught in schools at every level. People need to know what it means to be civically engaged in your community, and that does not always mean you need to run for office. And so I think that's my call to action is stay engaged and be informed in a way that advises policy.
And I'll speak directly to the people. My call to action is based on what all three of these brothers have said. I'll conflate it into one. It is about trustability and respectability. But what I think really needs to happen is we have to always look at data. Data drives the narrative that leads to funding. And policy is really critical, which is why I'm a part of the regulatory and policy world, because when you have individuals who sit at the table, who've been in the trenches, who can articulate what needs to be done, people who have empirical experiences, you can then determine what policies work best for people who look exactly like you, like me. And when we're able to do that, then we can distribute funding appropriately, which will, I think, improve the quality of life for individuals and will create job opportunities and will eventually allow a community to be built. I think in the Black community, more specifically, we're suffering from anomie. It is the condition of inability where a group of people or individual have experienced a breakdown in your standards, your morals, and your principles. And when that happens, people become hopeless. And when you become hopeless, you have no desire for your future. So again, from my perspective, would like to continue to reinforce that we have to come together, we have to look at policies, we have to make sure there are representatives who speak for us. Not every person who is Black or a person of color is representative of the community. That's my perspective. I definitely want to thank you guys for coming on here. This was a very lively debate. I'm going to do more political shows because I think most of all these conversations should construct some type of action item, and action items need to be executed, and it's really up to us to get it done. So I want to thank you, Jamal. I want to thank you, Cameron, and I want to thank you, Eon, for being passionate. This brother came in passionate. All right, everybody has a perspective, and I want to know what's yours. So make sure you follow, like, subscribe, definitely comment and let us know what you think about what the brothers had to say. Take care of yourself.